And we are back with the fifth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fifth segment, we are going to be looking at some players whose careers were riddled with injuries. And if you discard those injuries, who would have the best career and who would have the more accolades under their belt? So first, and obviously the favorite, is going to be Derrick Rose. A lot of people this is one of the biggest what-ifs in NBA history. A lot of people are really big fans of Derrick Rose when he being the youngest player to win the MVP. In my personal opinion, he shouldn't have even won the MVP. The big reason why he won that MVP was because a lot of people were still upset at LeBron for joining Miami. Despite that, I do think that LeBron was still the best player on the court and still the best player in the NBA, despite what the naysayers may say. But aside from that, he didn't end up winning the award, and Derrick Rose ended up winning it. And shortly after, in the postseason and in several other instances in his career, he ends up going down with a really bad injury. And it's really his knees. His knees, there's a joke going around that, if you get injured really easily, you have Derrick Rose knees. And it's really, really, he's got that, he's infamous for that. Whether famous or infamous, whatever you want to call it. But it's really, really it was a very big what-if story. And another big what-if story is, of course, T-Mac. He suffered from back spasms throughout a majority of his career. And he was one of the better scorers in the entire NBA. Kobe gave him a lot of praise, saying that he was just like him, except much taller, and can do everything on the offensive side of the ball. So when you get that kind of praise from Kobe, being one of the very few players that Kobe could not figure out, that it really means that means a lot, and it must mean that you are a baller. And one of the biggest problems and one of the biggest stigmas around Tracy McGrady is his playoff performances, which is why I don't really think he would have had that much of a good career compared to everybody else on this list, because his playoff performance was terrible, and it's been terrible. He's never, once as the number one option or the number two option, made it past the first round. And you can make the argument that, the team just wasn't as good around him, but a lot of it has to do with his own performance in these crucial games when the team desperately needs them and when it matters most. And I'm just going to pull up his game log real quick to show you exactly what I'm talking about. And, excuse me. But let's see. So in 2003, in the first round of the postseason, he blew a 3-1 lead, and this was the first 3-1 lead that Doc Rivers blew as a head coach. Now, in Game 5, the big closeout game, they lost by 31 points. T-Mac had a box plus-minus of minus 25, ended the game with 19 points, shot 8 for 20 from the field. He ended up picking it up in the next game, but they ended up losing by another blowout by 15 points. And then in Game 7, in the elimination game, he only scored 21 points, shooting 29% from the field, which is really, really bad, and in case you guys couldn't figure that out. Now, in 2005, you can make the argument that it wasn't his fault that he ended up losing in the postseason. However, he didn't really play that efficiently in the final game in Game 7, once again, shooting 14% from 3, 38% from the field. And this is a very common trend for T-Mac. He went up 2-0 in the series and then ended up losing 3 straight. In the next playoff appearance in 2007, ended up winning the first 2 games, again ended up losing the next 2, won in Game 3, so he had a 3-2 lead in the series, and then ended up losing in the final 2 games. Then in 2008, he dropped 40 points in the elimination game, yes, but he still lost by 22 points. It's just crashing and burning in the postseason was a very common trend for his teams and for the rosters. And you can make the argument that a lot of plays T-Mac did not capitalize on it. So another player on this list is Yao Ming, made the All-Star team in every single year that he played in, and he was another player that was riddled with back injuries. And I think that he definitely has the most potential out of every single one of these players. And really, like, I mean, not necessarily the impact that he had on the defensive side in this era was very, very, like, you could see. And on top of that, like, I mean, just being so much taller than a majority of the centers makes him an easy mismatch for a lot of players. Another player that had his injuries, like, ruin his career, Brandon Roy, probably one of the more underrated players in the history of the NBA. And a lot of people don't really talk about him, mainly because of the injuries that he's had throughout his career. He's had a very, very short career, but he, in my opinion, incredibly underrated. And Portland might have been a very, very solid team if it weren't for his injuries. In the only playoff series where he actually, like, started in every single game in 2008 and 2009, he ended up averaging 26 points per game, 45% from the field, and 47% from the three-point line, while he only took 2 threes, sure, but still, well, 3 threes actually, like, because the three-point average is 2.8, but still, that is a very, very good shooting percentage coming in from Brandon Roy. And Brandon Roy, of all of the players here, is arguably, the weakest one, and I don't really think that he would have a much better career. Like, I think his career would have been similar to T-Max a little bit. So, really, the conversation comes down to either Derrick Rose, who legitimately won the MVP, and Yao Ming. And I want to say that it's Derrick Rose, but I really feel like Yao Ming would have had a much better career than, if his injuries didn't affect him, than Derrick Rose. I know that's rather crazy to say, seeing as Derrick Rose won the MVP as being one of the younger players in the league, but that's sort of just how I feel about it. And just the value that I saw, not really that I've seen Yao Ming, like, come across, like, just thinking about a 7'5" center, I feel like I'm more confident in Yao Ming's game and his consistency as opposed to Derrick Rose and his consistency. I mean, yeah, Derrick Rose in his MVP season was fantastic, but I also don't really think that he should have won the MVP in that season. And I know that's rather crazy. Like, a lot of people are going to think that's rather ludicrous to say, and I have no doubt that he would have had a fantastic career had injuries not robbed him. But I mean, aside from that, I'm just not that much of a fan of Derrick Rose. I really don't see, like, the explosiveness, like, coming to, like, I totally understand, like, his game. I don't know, I'm not that confident with Derrick Rose having a better career, because I feel like there would have been other point guards, regardless of Derrick Rose and how good he was, that would have eventually overshadowed him. And not only that, I also think that Derrick Rose, like, he would not have advanced nowhere in the postseason. I really don't think that Derrick Rose would have advanced any farther in the postseason than what he did. Mainly because LeBron James exists. I firmly think that LeBron would still make 8 straight finals appearances regardless of whether or not Derrick Rose is healthy or not. And that is going to take a toll on Derrick Rose's legacy and his career if he didn't get injured. Because playoffs are everything in the NBA. Playoffs are everything. If you cannot meet the moment in the playoffs, then you aren't going to be remembered as you're going to be remembered as a solid player, but as an all-time great player, you're not really going to be remembered by it as much. And I think the consistent playoff losses to LeBron that would have happened to Derrick Rose, we're going to affect his legacy. Same thing with how LeBron eliminating the Raptors and DeMar DeRozan all the time is a stain on DeMar's legacy. And that's really why I think, Yao Ming would have had a much better chance, because I feel like he would have been able to lead his team a little bit farther in the postseason. Part of the reason because he wouldn't have to deal with LeBron all the time, but also because, like, I feel like his game would have been a little bit, like, I feel like he would have been able to just score on essentially everybody since he has such a huge height advantage. But that's just me. And I leave that up to you guys to decide in the comments. And that's all that I have for today. I am so hungry, and I also have to get ready for class. So thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really makes a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. For more content and updates, as usual, please remember to use the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment, gsmcpodcast.net. You can send in your comments and or donations that way, or you could use Super Chat. And if you do that, your comment is guaranteed to get featured on the next show. That's all that I have for you guys today. And thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson. Have a wonderful weekend. And as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go.